You know, watching the news and seeing what's going on in the discussion, it always kind of drives me to this place of irritation. I think one of the things that really galls me about being a member of the Democratic Party and a person who is and interacts with the party on a regular basis and has friends within the party, and I gotta say about all of it, loosely affiliated, but definitely part of the party. And the thing is that I watch a lot of the discussion that takes place on the news and everything, and it's very clear the party is in a state of soul searching about why Kamala Harris got creamed as badly as she did by Donald Trump in the election. And it's not even just a matter of like the degree, but just the fact that we lost. Everybody's soul searching to find a reason, and it drives me crazy because, I mean, I'm more than willing to admit, okay, like personally, that there is such a thing, within academia and the halls of it that they know about, and then I've harped on to death myself, which is called the fallacy of singular cause, and trying to attribute our electoral loss to purely one cause, such as racism, and sexism, is going to be a vast oversimplification of what's gone on, or trying to pin it all on economics is going to be again an oversimplification of what went wrong. But I think that all three of those things, racism, sexism, and the economy, together pretty much explain what happened. And you know I only say this as kind of like a hat tip to Joy Reid, and admitting, yes, okay, begrudgingly, there is a little bit more to this story than economics, but really there isn't that much more to it. I mean, even if I allow for the possibility that voters are racist and sexist, they're going to vote for what they perceive as being in their economic self-interest, whether or not the thing that they think is in their economic self-interest is actually in their economic self-interest, or matters completely different. And I think that it befuddles a lot of people in the Democratic Party, in that they know on some level, like rationally speaking, they can look at Donald Trump's policies and think, how is it going to help the economy to deport thousands and thousands and thousands of immigrants and tariff the shit out of everything, when those tariffs are just going to be passed on to the end consumer. I mean, how is this going to get inflation under control like Donald Trump is promising? Like, all of his policy proposals, will make inflation worse. There's a bunch of economists that have signed off on this. How is it that this could possibly be economics? And it's like you give the mainstream public way too much credit. That's the problem here. The average vote, it's been said before that the best way, that like the most convincing argument against democracy is a 5-minute discussion with the average voter, and that reality filters through to the current and present situation where you're dealing with a public and a persona of the general public, where people think they understand economics, they think that they've got a good grasp on the matter, and yet they are as ignorant as newborn pups about it. They don't really know what they're talking about. They've just fooled themselves into thinking they do. And I've said before on here, I don't think that any of you, when I'm talking about economics, need to rely on my word alone. You can verify most of what I say from independent reporting elsewhere. And the thing about it is, your economy, like whether you like it or not, to a considerable extent, does run on immigration, and yes, even the legal kind of it. These companies are very dependent on it to do things, and unfortunately, most white people don't actually want to work the jobs that these people are supposedly stealing from them. They don't want to do them, and they won't. The practicality of it is that white people are not going to take those jobs. So, saying that we want slaves to do this sort of things, and it's immoral and everything. Like, what would we have to do as an alternative? It just not get done? I mean, would you prefer that? like that's gonna ever happen. But no, the thing that the Democrats like misunderstand and don't understand about the whole thing is that it is primarily the economy. And I mean, like, how do we know that? How can we be certain of that? Well, because when you lose an election, like the sensible thing to do, would be to look at the exit poll data about why voters voted the way that they did, and have them give you their explanation. And when we go and we look into the exit polls on this one, and I have on this channel before, but if you go and you look at what they're saying in the exit polls, it's all economic matters. They're all concerned about it and everything, which means, in effect, Donald Trump sold them a bill of goods. He told them that he was going to get grocery prices under control, that he was going to get inflation down and all this other stuff. And, is he delivering on any of it? No. Is he actually maintaining his campaign promises? No. He dropped the grocery thing almost a couple weeks into his presidency, almost immediately. Like, how am I going to do that? And then just threw up his hands and gave up on it, and the the American public are dumbasses. I mean, that's what you as Democrats need to understand. You're not dealing with a very intelligent population, unfortunately. That I know that a lot of people find it rude, but so what? It's the truth. You're dealing with a bunch of stupid people, who are casting ballots in, that they shouldn't be, because they don't understand what they're doing on any level, and that's the thing. That's the whole trouble of the postmortem. And the thing is that the whole trouble with the Democrats trying to, come to a postmortem on what went wrong, and then, coming up with a bunch of, half-baked theories that come from their minds and their brains, is that if you come to the conclusion, for instance, that the Democrats lost from moving too far left, then you're going to solve that problem, whether that problem had anything to do with why the voters voted the way they did or not. That's going to be your assumption, and you're going to run with it and solve it, and then you're going to barrel into another electoral loss because you got the fucking reason they lost wrong. Though, I mean, logically speaking, we have to get the postmortem on this one right. Otherwise, we're going to work on fixing an issue as a party that is completely dead wrong for what actually happened. And the problem with that is that if we don't get the answer right, and we get the wrong, and we pick the wrong reason we lost, and then we fix that, we will barrel straight into yet another electoral loss because we're not getting the message, that the voters are actually trying to send. And here it was, and it's plain as day. Like they blamed Biden ultimately for the grocery prices. They blamed him for the price of oil, despite the fact that has more to do with OPEC. They tried to pin it all on Democratic policies, and so they voted the bum that was in power out, and hoped that Trump would fucking fix things. And is he fixing things? No. Fortunately, things haven't gotten much worse yet, at the very least, since he took power for the economy. I mean, God help us, he might careen towards it, But, the Democrats are getting the postmortem on this one all wrong. They're trying to settle on something like, the party lost for moving too far to the left. That's just not the truth. The truth is, like, way dumber, way stupider. There's no such thing as stupider, but bad phrase. But it's way dumb. It's way more dumb than the party lost for moving too far to the left. It lost for the economy. It's what it really boils down to. It's the economy, stupid. And it drives me crazy. Like I said, I mean, I've been worried. The fear that rose up in me, and the concern was basically, if we don't get the postmortem on this one right, then we're going to work on addressing the wrong things, and then when it comes time to go into an election, we'll have fixed the issue that it wasn't really actually, and then as a consequence, and steadily of that, going downstream from that, we'll lose that election too. the Democrats can't afford to get the post-mortem here wrong. And that's why I say check the exit polls. And the exit polls say it was economic anxiety. So yeah, sure, maybe racism and sexism were also part of the story, but you know, I'm going to go ahead and point out that the reality is that some people may be racist and sexist, but they still look out for number one more than they care about the hatred that's in their hearts. And so they might dislike a woman for being a woman candidate in politics, but if they come to the conclusion that that woman being elected will do a lot for their pocketbook and make them a lot richer, they're more than likely to overlook their misogyny.